From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure. Growing up, I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Jenn Landa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and I did not have time to shave this morning, so I apologize for my jawed chin.
It's a sexy jawed chin. I like it. We are here as a crew. We are all together here to discuss the finale of the Skeleton Crew series finale, season finale. Oh, we're going to be talking about that, I'm sure, for months and if not years to come. Before we get to all that, and we have a lot to get to, we're going to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, MP3 player. We have been recommending a lot of books from the past, and I'm sticking right now with Aftermath by Chuck Wendig, which, as was pointed out this week on social media, is 10 years old. Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. We're here to dive into episode 8, The Real Good Guys, directed by John Watts, written by Christopher Ford and John Watts. Our adventure of growing up has reached its final stand while Jod gets closer to his dreams of covering his pain with endless amounts of money. The kids lead the way to saving the day. In a faster, more tense finale, the once quiet and oppressively safe city on At Attin finds itself swarmed by pirates, lost in darkness, and in search of the real good guys, which sounds like a song prompt from the 70s. Here we are. Joseph, Jennifer, a lot to get to. Overall reactions, tears to wipe away. Joseph, how are you feeling right now?
Well, first of all, somewhere Don Pardo is applauding and wishing that he could read that script that you wrote. I love that your summaries have slid into absolutely, a great broadcaster summarizing an amazing baseball game. The highs, the lows, the victories, the failures, the tears.
Featuring Chris Parnell. Yes.
Which, at some point, the Mandoverse will feature Chris Parnell. So excellent prediction as well, Ken.
You're not wrong about that. I think he's the villain. Anyways, yes.
Yeah, man, big picture. I love this. I think there's so much to talk about, and I think the show was about a lot of things. But the thing that really hit me on my second viewing this morning is one of the things I love most about this story is I think it's been a story about two kinds of stories, about a hero story and a villain story. The story of the Jedi, the fantasy of the Jedi, the philosophy of the Jedi, which is about hope and helping people. And the darker story of the pirate story, the pirate tale, that is a story about fear and greed. And what I thought was really interesting in this finale is there was a confrontation between those philosophies, specifically language from both Fern and Jod describing the galaxy as it is, which is full of lots of darkness with pinpricks of light. And the Jedi and the pirate story give us different ways that we can approach that. We can focus on the darkness and be selfish and greedy and desperate, or we can focus on the light and try to work together and help one another. And both of those ideas being presented, and kind of the heroes and the villains of this particular story going, yep, we agree. It took all of that idea and kind of brought it back to that Qui-Gon quote that was used in the show of your focus determines your reality, of if we agree that the galaxy is a rough, dark place with a few pinpricks of light, then what are we going to do about it? What are we going to focus on? How are we going to use the power that we all legitimately have to make individual choices? And some of that sounds so simple. The what of it sounds so simple, but the how of it is the complexity of life, and it's the complexity of this show. There's a ton of stuff I love, but that big picture idea I just really wanted to start with because I think that's the heart of it, and it's classic Star Wars where it seems simple, but it is truly complex and can truly affect the way we handle our daily lives.
Oh, well said. We've talked often, and it will come up again, that Jod seems to be speaking to himself more often than not. And I think that conversation with Wib upon looking at it from this vantage point, really him sitting down with himself, the younger version of himself, and some of his choices. Jenn, where do you go with all this and the big picture and the overall reaction on this satisfying finale, as they're saying on TV Guide?
Yeah, what I loved about this show was that it showed the hero's journey without the elitism, if you will, without needing to have the force or be the chosen one. Which there was a moment where I was kind of like, is Wim going to suddenly channel the force? Is something otherworldly going to happen? No. These are everyday kids who are able to be heroes, and not just the kids, but the adults. It really is about the collective actions of this group. And I thought it was great that each character, each kid had their moment of victory, but ultimately it's all of these people coming, all of these aliens and people coming together to triumph over bad. And that's what I thought was also interesting, was that Jod and At Attin are kind of mirror images of each other in that they're cautionary tales. They both have the same distorted worldview. People
Mm.
are bad, the world is dangerous, the world is evil. How they go about trying to rectify that obviously is very different. But it's the kids that teach Jod and all the adults, you don't need the metaphoric or physical shield to
Hmm.
protect yourself. There are good people everywhere. And I just thought that that was so beautiful. And one last thing I'll say is that I think that this show worked so well for kids. And yes, it's not a kids show, but whether it was like the expositional dialogue or like these big, themes and messages, kids can understand it. They really used a lot of simple language so that it's like reinforcing these ideas, so that even if kids get a little lost, like what's happening, what, no, no, no. My daughter's like, oh, that's the plan. Okay, great. It's like just it's simple and yet so poignant for both kids and adults.
Do you think is that an example of this is, as we've said before and you just said it, it's not a kids show, it's a show that has kids and it's about kids, but in many ways that also makes it a kids show, and that this show just speaks directly across to them. It doesn't talk down, it doesn't dumb it down, it just speaks to them at their level. Is that what you're seeing on your couch at home with your daughters?
100%. Even the violence I thought was very well done. It was, the pirates destroy the structures. As we
Mm,
don't really, I don't can't really remember seeing anybody, getting hit with
right.
a laser or whatnot. Jod grazes Farah, right?
Mm,
Like just all these things. And even Wim, he's like Jod, what does he say? He said, Jod didn't save us. He's trying to get us. And I was like,
mm.
oh, well, I would have said he's trying to kill us, right? But the fact that the kid says he's trying to get us, I was like, oh, that's so, so smart. But yeah, it was really awesome to see my 9-year-old, who was she was on the edge of the couch, like, what's gonna happen? Is KB dead? She really thought KB was potentially dead. So that
Yeah.
was
Sure.
that was
I
really
think it's
thrilling.
so great that it is also it is a show with kids in it, not a kids show in my opinion, but I think for kids and for adults, the fact that there was so much back and forth throughout the whole show of different adults being portrayed as kids and
Mm-hmm.
having to make the same choices, and the adults being more held back by the metaphorical barrier of uh, the actual physical barrier. I think it must be so welcoming to kids to go like, yeah, adults aren't perfect too.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
And feel that throughout the show of like, yeah,
mm,
it isn't just a story where, Wim has to convince his fuddy-duddy dad. There's like depth to it, that
mm.
Mm-hmm.
these choices are hard at any age.
Yeah, there's something I liked as it plays out. We'll talk about moments and themes, of course, yes, but like, man, just the parents kind of having to follow the lead of the kids, having to trust
Hmm.
them, and that being explicitly stated or asked of them, and them springing into action over the with Wendell and Farah. Love seeing that. Love seeing that play out. It really centered the kids as it should in a special way. Mm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're both saying
Um,
wonderful. Yeah, go ahead. No, no,
no,
go ahead.
no, please, no, please, Ken.
Well, you're both saying wonderful things. You're both just slaying it this morning. Or I should say, Jen, you're both just getting it this morning, not slaying. With your reads.
Best.
I am. I have just. Yeah, I was so emotionally moved that I'm almost lost in an emotional cloud. This series is just well written. It's very tight. The momentum, the pacing, and all those kind of critical buzzwords uh, came into play when you're talking about every episode. I never want to say anything's perfect, but a lot of it that's perspective, and I think it did, as you both are saying so well. Brought home some of the biggest Star Wars ideals that are out there. The good, the light, heroes helping protect others, and it presented it in such just a special, fun, touching fashion that it. If it is speaking to two kids, I'm a kid right now, and I needed it. And this series was well timed for me. Other series, Acolyte, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, are well timed for a lot of people. That's the joy of this franchise and why we keep coming back to it. When you don't expect it, it's going to move you. And I've said, and like a lot of people, at the start of this series, yeah, all right, we'll see what Skeleton Crew is about. I hope it's a fun romp. All right. The one big note I had heard from someone was like, I don't know, it's the best thing they've done. And they were asked why. They were like, it's just good. Like, I can't explain it. I right now on a show where we're supposed to explain it a little bit. I can't explain it. I at one point began, and again, a lot of things going on in the world, a lot of things going on in Southern California, a lot of things going on in my life that have been a culmination of a lot of things going on for 3-4 years. I was in a spot, but I started sobbing midway through this episode, like sobbing, like happy, sad, emotional, purging tears around Fern's words, around Wim's words, even when he called to Jod in the elevator. And Jod kind of gave him this, it's too late for me, my son, kind of vibe. But then we'll talk about what happens with Jod and everything. I was moved by a lot of it. It's the be the pinprick of light kind of philosophy. And that's the biggest compliment I can give to the series right now. I don't have the words. I only have the emotions. And this show really struck a chord with a lot of folks. So that's my overall. But anyways.
I think the show is successful because it led with emotion first. And then I think what we choose to do on a podcast like this is sort of reverse engineer the emotions of how did they build that feeling, and then it becomes an intellectual exercise where you can express it. But for me, why I love this show is that it was emotion first, and the reverse engineer intellectualizing of that, I think it's just really solid classic character first storytelling. If you care about the characters, then the sort of morals that feel like, well, that could come across kind of simple and obvious and saccharine. It doesn't feel simple and obvious and saccharine because we've been brought with it by our emotion and our connection to the characters. And I think the other huge thing that this show has done incredibly well is so many of the worlds they visit, the visuals support the theme. And it isn't just, that's a cool design. The barrier, you don't ever have to intellectualize that the barrier is an analogy for moving past fear, for puberty, for different life choices, for going into the scary forest. It's this sort of so it's primal and visceral and obvious on an emotional level of, if the shield disappears, there'll be fear and beauty, but which are you going to concentrate on? That's supported in the show by dialogue, and you can analyze it, but it's just so well done that it's just visceral. You don't have to analyze that to feel it. And I think that's what's happening with the kids. They're feeling it, and they don't have to reverse engineer and intellectualize it in order to feel it.
No, it's just going straight at us. Now, Jed, your oldest daughter is pretty smart. So did she point to the screen and say, Mom, that's the shield of my youth coming down?
I know. My husband and I were like, whoa, like there's some deep things going on, right? And my 9-year-old's like, yes. Like she had she just let it wash over her, and she was tired, and I didn't know if we were going to be able to watch it as a family, but I forced them. We stayed up a little bit later. But the interesting thing was afterwards, I was like, well, what did you think? She's like, I don't know. It was just awesome. It was just great. And I'm like, well, okay, why? And she's like, because the good people won. She's like, the good people won. I like that. I was like, okay. And then she said the thing about how she liked each character had their moment. She loves KB. Everything about KB, she just, loves. So it just was interesting because normally she has like specific moments and whatever. But Ken, same thing. She's just like, I loved it. I don't know what to tell you, Mom. I loved it. I'm like, okay.
Don't make me hand in my essay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. My husband and I are like, well, what about this? What about this moment? She's like, yeah, it's just fun.
And Joseph, you make a wonderful point. It's what we love doing here. And I think sometimes when you dig deep and you connect those dots, pockets of emotion open up to you, where you're just like, oh, that works. That's why I love what we do here. And we're about to do it in the way we love doing it here shortly. But yeah, I think what you're describing, Joseph, makes me think of specifically A New Hope. This isn't about any other properties, from the perfect Empire Strikes Back to, but I just like kind of think that's why New Hope inspired a nation, timed at the world even, but timed right, in a time that needed to hear it, but presented in this way that you don't fully even need to understand. You could just feel it. I think that was on display here. Am I comparing this show? Am I one of those people that Skeleton Crew and New Hope? I had one friend say it's the best thing since New Hope. I guess what? I don't disagree with that at all in some ways.
Okay.
We could talk about that, but like, I submit Bad Batch season 2 episode. No, it's like, I got it. I got it when they said that, and I get it.
Yeah, I think it's building on some of those classic themes, but I think it has some different and unique things to say.
Yeah.
Before we move on from the overall reaction, I do have a question for you both about just sort of the nature of the storytelling and the prediction game. I felt like this final episode held very few surprises, and I didn't care at all. Many of us had been talking and discussing that, hey, it's probably a droid, it's probably a Wizard of Oz thing as a supervisor. I had some wild theories about, well, maybe they're setting up King No Head and not seeing Tack run its face to lead to something bigger. Like, nope, it's a droid. Like people have been guessing since the very beginning. Yep, half the Star Wars community was like, yeah, Kim's going to show up with X-Wings. Yeah, the kids are going to stand up for themselves and convince the adults to help. Like, yeah. In terms of like a prediction game, this was exactly what I think a lot of people predicted. There was no surprise in the what, but there was so much joy in the how. How do you both feel about that? Ken, how did you feel about like that this conclusion was sort of like that feeling of the song is resolving and it's hitting the home note, and I'm just enjoying that it returned to the note I expected, not that it had a surprising atonal Luke Skywalker note. It's just it just finished its story, and there were some fun and surprises in the exact beats, but the what was utterly predictable and yet totally satisfying.
You're explaining exactly why I want to go to Oasis concerts, not Radiohead concerts. And both are wonderful. And both are wonderful. All right. In favorite moments, I want to, Claire, really love you brought this up, because I think it's a key point of this episode, or key part of this episode's success for me is, like Neil with the gun, that was clocked. Episode 3 or 4, the X-Wings, call me if you need any help, says Kim, and that's exactly what happens. And with everything you just said, it was like, because it's how we got there, it's the why of it, and then also, like, Neil didn't save the day with the gun; it was part of the larger tableau of this episode. The X-Wings showed up and kind of wrapped it all up, but the kids saved the day. So it's like going back to your first statement of the characters. And knowing and writing these characters so well, it just you're there for the end. I love, that's a great analogy. The end of the song that you've been singing along with since the moment it began. That's the kind of success of a good pop song. I've never heard this before, yet I know every word already. Like, I think that's kind of it. And the sub conversation before I patch it over to you, Jen, but like, I that's why I don't do predictions, and it's not about our speculate response and everything. Just when I get asked a lot, I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't want to think about it. I just want to, I'm on the roller coaster. Because I do think, especially with finales, there's this weird attachment thing that needs to be studied, where you spend 8 years figuring out, trying to get to the end. And then when you get there and you're like, well, saw that coming. Now the last 8 years weren't valuable to me. It's just it's like we're at a sports book in Vegas placing down bets instead of enjoying the love of the game.
Yeah, I think that I think of the Titanic, the movie The Titanic, and my dad was like, spoiler alert, the ship sinks. It's like, okay, we
Thanks,
know. Right?
But who did it? Was it the iceberg?
What's the why?
Right.
The why iceberg?
Right. It's not about like what we already know. It's about how, like you're saying, how the story is told. And I think that there's a time and a place for these types of like surprises. Game of Thrones, there's lots of surprises. I came to like expect that, and I wanted that. With this, I don't think you needed to have that. I was hoping that they would call on Kim. I was hoping the X-Wings would show up, because, and if it didn't, I might have actually been I would have been disappointed.
Yeah, interesting.
It's just like how it came together. This like, yes, all these pieces are coming into place for our heroes. That's what I want. My kid, she had no idea. She's not playing the prediction game. She's just like, what's going to happen, right? And maybe a kid who's more dialed in, who's like really studying this stuff and like going episode by episode, really figuring it out. But she just was like, she had no idea. She was like, oh my gosh. And she's like, X-Wings. She shouted that. First of all, I was
So did I.
Well, and I think maybe part of the power of it is like is the X-Wings were great, but the B-Wings really sold it, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So it's like that was exactly the note I was expecting, but they played it on a sitar instead of a guitar because B-Wings showed up.
Well, but same with Neil and the gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like for her, she was like X-Wings, and I'm like, wait, are those B-Wings? Right, exactly. So it's like playing on the both levels.
There's something to it, and you mentioned the Game of Thrones. Go to season 1, and book readers who knew everything coming, sit on the shelf for a second. If you didn't know that Ned Stark was going to die, it was definitely a shock. The show tells you it for 7 episodes. Yeah. Go down there, you'll die. I told you not to. Trust me, you're going to die. If you don't stop, you're going to die. So when Ned dies, it's like, we've told you. That's so it's the journey there. It's the loss. It's the tragedy. This show, I think, told you stuff that was going to happen if you make these choices, and you make these connections and you find the good. That's Fern. There's good people everywhere. Yeah. One of them's a bird who talks and sends X-Wings in 2 flaps or less. Like, it was all there, and it just worked so well. It worked like a good sitar.
Mm-hmm. And I think, we need both stories. We need the kinds of stories that use story structure to go, hey, real life isn't always stories, which is what I think, Game of Thrones was on a mission to do. I think in some ways it's what The Acolyte was on a mission to do, to say, let's look at the complexities of this. And we need stories where we say these ideas that we know and that we love are true. They are valuable, and let's support them by singing a beautiful pop song that makes you feel good at the end.
Yeah. It made me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Made me feel good. Favorite moments, there's a lot to choose from, of course, and we love diving into the themes, but I love putting these on the table. And I don't know, from the beginning, nothing like a home-cooked meal and that space lasagna and just the idea of this.
Oh, it was perfection, right?
Yes.
For the mix of what Mim must be feeling.
Yeah.
The comfort and safety of the home and the boredom of home.
Yeah.
At the exact same time.
Exactly.
Perfection.
That was a little bit of that, the Hobbits at the bar, because we didn't get that like a fade out credits or, the end of American Graffiti. Here's what happened to Neil. He opened up a bathtub company. But yeah, what you're talking about, Joseph, exactly right. Nothing like a home cooked meal, especially my second or third viewing.
So funny.
Yeah. It's the second or third viewing of just that space lasagna and just the drudgery and a droid watching it, and it ain't home anymore for Whip. So my friend Jed, where do you go?
Oh, Wendell had so many great moments. Yeah. We are stopping this right now. And then to cut to him, cheering after they skid out, which was very E.T. I had to go back and watch the bike chase scene, and that skid out is spot on. That was so fun. When the security droid catches Wim trying to contact Neil, and then Wim starts playing with his action figures. We have to save Princess Fern. Felt very Spaceballs. I'm just going to say that. But in a clean way. In a clean way. When Wendell says, "Son, you were talking to a level 7 systems coordinator. Get the bike." That was just wasn't that great?
So yeah. Good. And the delivery on the you're talking to a level 7 was like, that's solid comedy. But the way he said, "Get the bike," dead serious, was like, that's the button for me. I'm like, okay.
That's comedy right
good. It felt good as like a nerd, but also like as a parent, there's moments where it's like my daughter's been like, "Can we do this?" I'm like, "Kid, I got you in your presentation. I'm an actor." Like,
I'm a level 4 PowerPoint expert. Get the computer.
That's right. That's right. Okay, well, there's too many. One last thing I'll say is for the supervisor. When the supervisor says, "I have been watching you and your daughter with great interest," I was like, "What?" Because to me, great interest, good policy, right? And I was like, "What?" And I had to calm myself down. My family was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, oh, "Okay, that's right. Stephen Fry was a voice." I was like,
Mhm.
"Palpatine?" Like, I was one of those people clicking on the keyboard on Reddit.
Hey.
Supervisor is Snoke. Yeah.
Yeah,
Confirmed.
exactly.
Confirmed.
Exactly. Oh
Yeah.
boy, that was fun though. That was fun.
Emotional connection to both of those lines of like the benevolent paternal,
Mm,
kind of,
mm,
I'm watching you all the time. Is that good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Lines function the same way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you on the ET speeder bikes, which was clearly a direct nod, and in a series that promised to be an Amblin era Star Wars show, it delivered in that, and I don't think it drowned in it. I think there was more early on than later, but I think it just kind of layered it well. Tundi Adubempe, I'm sure in saying that somewhat incorrectly, but him as Wendell, been solid all through the series, but just an all-star in this episode. From his hero actions to what you're talking about, the joy of jumping over the canyon.
That was so great.
Oh, so good, right? Like kid again vibes, but also not just that he's back to being a kid, that he's moving forward into a sense of adventure, a sense of breaking from the norms. And I loved it. It paid off so well.
Well, that adult life doesn't have to all be what we saw at the
Right.
beginning of just drudgery and overtime and
Mm-hmm.
stress and not spending time with your child and not spending any time with joy. What made it so great about that barrier needed to come down for the adults even more than the kids.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
and what we're talking about earlier about nothing like a home cooked meal. Well, sure, that's true. I want one of those things as well, but like that is not what is needed. It's more not that you're going to go save the day from pirates all the time, but go for a bike ride with your damn kid or something like that. You
yeah,
know?
try a spice.
Yeah,
Try
yeah.
a spice, Wendell. I think my favorite Wendell line that you guys haven't mentioned is at the end. You don't want to have a whole adventure just to get crushed at the end.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, that was great.
It was so great that they're like all of these fun games with parent and adult perspective, and what can the adults teach the parents, and the kind of ending at that beat of like, great, thanks for teaching us how to live life, kids, but also get out from under the heavy thing. It seemed
Mm-hmm.
like well, they still do need their parents. Was great.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah. Couple for me. I did actually yell with joy and startle my wife in the other room for when the B wings had their long laser blast.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
because there is the like, hey, Dad, we haven't really seen that a ton in live action that I can remember, and like,
Yeah.
it's great when like that's the way the B wings fire in the video games. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
here it
Mm-hmm.
is in live action.
Yeah.
Is awesome.
I think, I think some people were, but I think it's the first time live action because Rebels is kind of the big first time. You had the video game stuff you got there too, in terms of storytelling. I'm talking about the Rebels thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, that was I wrote that just B wings, baby, and I'm a Y wing guy, as we all know. Oh, to see those blade wings in action, love it.
Yeah. A lot of great Neil stuff as always, but I think my favorite thing was his little action roll away from the spotlight after he'd fallen off the bike. So
Oh,
like
it's
Oh
so good.
yeah.
little action roll, just a beautiful moment. Um,
Mm.
the the moment, the image. This is one of those images that I feel like that's just so it tells the story. KB first the treasure rolling out of the ship, and then KB
Mm,
rolling out of
mm-hmm.
the ship. We
Mm-hmm.
talked a lot in several episodes, but last episode in particular, really highlighting the sadness of for Jod treasure is money that
Mm-hmm.
he won't admit to himself, but he thinks it can buy him everything else. And the kids are really clear, like, no, our parents, each other,
Mm.
being alive, that's the treasure. So to just see that just as an actual image of
Mm-hmm.
the money spilling out, and they don't give a damn about that, and then KB, the real treasure, spills out. It's really cool.
Yeah, great
Um,
choice.
two other things for me. The Wim calling for Jod, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. But that's one of those moments that really elevated the show and made it, I think, feel like it isn't just hitting notes to tell morals and life lessons we already know. It's one of those moments that really adds complexity and possibility. That even after all that, Wim is still hopeful that Jod can make a better choice. Great. And final thing, I want to acknowledge the cool graphics montage at the end was a
Mm-hmm.
great way to underline. Well, life isn't a story; it isn't a fantasy, and you should deal with reality. But there are amazing morals and lessons in these stories that we can take into our real life. So I really like that it was Wim's Jedi stories of tragedy and victory in the last images. Well, now they're part of the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely more to come on that. Yeah, for me, some final moments. Yeah, a lot of them are Jod related. I've been in on this character from the start, and obviously raved about Jude Law's performances. But this was one of my favorite episodes with the character. And for me, there's a little bit. Sure, we'll dive in here. Yes, as we always say on ForceCenter, we will dive in because we all want to dive in every time we open our mouths. But there was that Star Wars redemption came for Jod in a couple of looks, a couple of actions, and Wim saying his name, knowing that even after all that, he's worthy of coming down the elevator to safety with us, moved me beyond my own comprehension in the moment. But just some of the smiles I wrote down, like a Jod smile here, that he could have killed them with the blaster. He knows it. They know it. He put it down. I'm not saying he's a hero in that moment. I'm just saying it was just this collection of little redemptions that we didn't have to live with or swim in or, music swelled everything. He made it. And also he's still a pirate. Also, we don't know how he gets out of things. And I love that kind of continued. He escaped. He's alive. We don't see how, we don't see why. There's no end credits where he pops up on another planet in an escape pod. There's just a smile and he moves on. So anyways, it worked on me in so many levels. And you're right, Joseph. It's just, it's the complex. Would you say complexity and possibility?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's wonderful because it's not just leaving it open for more. And they were working with one season. If you were building a show differently, and I thought Acolyte built some stuff for big questions for season 2. Ahsoka clearly is big question season 2. But they knew they had this series, and so it comes to this complete end. Man, the possibilities are endless right now, and I love that.
I think that's what's powerful about it. And one other kind of practical question before we get into the big deep themes, I feel like there is in genre a spectrum of endings that you can map from Return of the Jedi to Return of the King. Where Return of the King, of course, it almost gets made fun of for let's check in with what is the fate of each character. It's resolving everybody's journey for the most part. And, Return of the Jedi is, they dance with the murder bears.
Yeah.
And will Leia become a Jedi? Will Luke train other people? Will Han and Leia get married? Will Lando go back to working at Cloud City? We know nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's just about, we won this victory and the future is out there. And I think a lot of people in our discussions and in our, chats, people wanted a Return of the King. And Neil goes on to sell bathtubs, and Wim goes on to become a New Republic jet fighter. And it was not a Return of the King ending that a lot of people were actively hoping for. It was a Return of the Jedi ending of just, now the barrier's down and possibility is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, how did you feel? Were you longing for the Return of the King ending, or were you totally fine with the Return of the Jedi ending?
As someone who sat in ArcLight when people in the audience started laughing about the 5th Return of the King ending, and I wanted to stand up and say, and forget that it's the appendices. I wanted to stand up and be like, I don't want this movie to end. I'll take 72 of these. I love what we got. That's why I really am ignited by your comment about this complex show opening up so many possibilities. Jod, the kids, you get some answers, maybe, right? If you want them. I'm going to be an X-Wing pilot. I'm going to own a bathtub company. For my money, I'll tell you this. I think that's Leia showing up in a blockade runner, or maybe her blockade runner. It's at least implied, this ship, right? And yes, there's more of them. I understand that this could be something other than the Tantive V4. But to me, that's the Republic showing up, and you have all these wonderful questions, and I love that it faded out there. And maybe that wouldn't work for me all the time, but it worked this time. Return of the Jedi.
How did you feel, Jen? Were you hoping for more endings showing where the kids were headed, or were you happy with this just kind of open-ended possibility?
I would have liked an epilogue of some sort. I think that I've gotten conditioned to that. And certainly my husband and I were like, wait, there might be, because my daughter was upset. And we were like, wait, there might be more. There might be more. And then we saw the credits with the data pad and whatever, the stories. And that was great. But maybe just one scene. It didn't even have to be with Jod necessarily. Maybe it's with Pocket. Maybe it's with security droid. I don't know. Just a little something. I don't know. I think it's just because we've gotten conditioned with that, with modern day, movies and whatnot. But I like that it's open-ended. because we don't know what's going to happen with this show. It could come back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was greedy and I didn't learn my pirate lesson. I was greedy and wanted more. And, when the credits minimized, I was like, no. And I made them bigger again. It was like, because maybe
Yeah.
there'll be a little button at the end. But I realized that was just about me wanting more because I enjoyed it. And the thing that made me teary was rewatching it this morning and ending on Wim just looking up and going, I can do and be anything now. And like, why would you end on anything but the beauty of a child looking up and thinking I can be anything? It's so beautiful.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that. And yeah, Jen, I would have taken that too, right? That's how I love these characters. I would have taken a fade out, fade up, a first day of the next year's school or something. I don't know. Could have worked, but I love where we're at.
Fade up. The economy has collapsed.
The economy
is doing their best.
Who will be the new supervisor? With that, man, let's dive in deeper, Joseph, on themes and let's connect all the dots.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of ideas overall in individual episodes and the show of what is the nature of adventure, the classic story of having to face the dark forest and push through the fear to find the wonder, fantasy versus reality, lots of metaphors for adulthood, the power of story, lots of games of who is the adult and who is the child, all those things. And I think they really kind of tied them all up in a couple of big picture ways. One is something that we've already started talking about all of them, but to zero in a little bit on Jennifer's overall reaction, I kind of wrote down the theme that everything good is beyond the barrier. It is a metaphor for the big image of the actual barrier is real in the show, but also a metaphor of At Attin is beautiful and cozy and safe, and those things are good, but we need more than that. And At Attin's version of beautiful and cozy and safe is kind of a lie. It's not dealing fully with reality. Everything can be beautiful and cozy and safe if we hide from everything. But if we hide from everything, we will never jump over a chasm with our child on a speeder bike and get to feel alive again. And that whole sort of barrier image of push past the fear to find the joy, also push past the barrier to face the reality of choices. And you get to choose. Do you look at choices the way the kids do about halfway through when they say, I don't like this, it's scary and confusing. And at the end, it isn't scary and confusing. It's open possibility. And all of that, it comes from breaking down the barrier. All that stuff is can be very, very obvious and straightforward. But the way the show played with it, this final episode that I like the most, is from the perspective of the adults and from the reckoning with the society of At Attin. The kids have almost already finished their journey, and this was just the victory parade for them. The adults had not really started this journey. The barrier coming down, this was an episode about the adults becoming real adults, because for their entire life they've been mollycoddled by a droid. They have not had to face what the kids had to face, which is literally pirates, but also they haven't had to face the fear of choice, of what am I going to do, because they have a rule for absolutely everything. They don't even get to really choose what they become. They take the test, and the test tells them, and they do it well, and maybe there's some upward mobility, but the amount of dialogue that infantilizes the adults in this episode, Wim saying, if there's a problem, that's what the supervisor is for. The supervisor looking at Farron saying, the outside galaxy is so dangerously unstable. It's just this controlling parent figure saying, don't look, don't touch, don't try. The supervisor saying strict obedience to authority has kept At Attin running smoothly for generations. The adults are allowing themselves to be protected from fear, but also held back from choice, joy, wonder. So I thought in some ways that was the best part of it. Jennifer, I'm talking out of my own opinions about parents and children.
You're talking out of your own bathtub.
Talking out of my own bathtub, but you are the actual adult among us, adult who has children among us. How did you feel about the adults needing the barrier to come down, probably even more than the kids did?
Yeah, I thought that it was a interesting theme of security and protection can lead to suffocation and isolation. And really, what my husband and I were saying afterwards was it felt like a commentary on helicopter parenting and really
Yeah.
like modern day parenting. And it was such a nice juxtaposition of seeing the kids taking these hover bites, very much ET, which reminded me of when we were growing up. And kids used to take their bikes and be gone until sundown, just come back at dinner
Yeah.
time, right? We didn't have cell phones to check in. We had to go to pay phones if we could find one, if we had quarters, right? There was freedom. But with that freedom comes risks. And that's what really we see is beyond the barrier. Once these kids get freedom, there's a lot of freaking danger and there's a lot of risks. Obviously, they triumph and they are, I don't want to say rewarded, but they come out stronger from experiencing those risks, right? But it's the parents who still can't let that barrier down. They want to protect their children. You were not supposed to learn this until you were 16. I can't let down the barrier, right? I just thought that it was so great that the parents are having to have this moment of being like, it's okay. The children can grow and thrive. We don't have to be overbearing and protecting them and trying to control everything. We have to let down the barrier, and that's how everyone can grow and succeed, and also help the galaxy. But that's another theme, which I'll get into later.
Yeah. How did you feel about the fact that that the parents so quickly accepted a different authority figure, Jod, that they knew nothing about and just kind of handed their kids' fate? I mean, to me, that was kind of like a danger sign of this is what we're talking about of being, you need to ask the wise of authority. And you know, they came around really quick. I don't want to be too hard on Wendell and Farrah was definitely, you know, side-eyeing Jod early on, but it is really scary of just like authority figure said, and our kids are in trouble. And so we just fall in line without asking who this authority figure is and should this authority figure have any say over our children.
Yeah, we can see that in modern day politics. We can see that just, where parents sometimes will defer to the teachers, the principals, even if it goes against what they believe, or politicians or city officials, whoever it may be, right? And so people are conditioned, especially in this At Attin society, to be complacent, which is a huge theme, I think, throughout this series.
Yeah. Very much agreed. Ken, how do you feel about the general, the adult specifically, or the general? Everything good is beyond the barrier of fear.
You've been saying it from the beginning that this is the series, the adventure of growing up, right? Is the journey and the danger of growing up and the risk. I love what you're saying about this episode being kind of from Wendell and Farrah's point of view. I know we don't spend as much time with KB or Neil's families, but they, unfortunately, Neil and KB are number 2 on the call sheet behind Fern and Wim. But I love it's from their perspective. Wendell's got the first words essentially. Farrah comes around late, but comes around, and because they're seeing all this, and this idea of the barrier being viewed as essential to their survival. And yeah, what you're talking about, Jen, safety's okay. I used to ride my bike up and down the street. Maybe that was good, maybe that wasn't. But also, as Joseph and I, in particular, Jen, maybe as well, but Other Center at times became can we work through some stuff about moms? And for me, there's a lot of, and I own it, but it's like, there's a lot of, in my life, even later in my life, of like, you could get hurt by love. Therefore, you should be careful about seeking it. It got drilled into me for a long time, and to see this barrier come down and have the parents, the whole city's parents, parental structure, breathing this sigh of I don't know what to call it, relief, acceptance of enlightenment. The clouds are clear. It was powerful to see it from the parents' point of view, and because they were raised in that. This is absolutely Wendell and Farrah had. This is how the only way they saw the world, and their parents probably kept them trapped too, and it was just a system, and now the system's been broken. So I was really moved by it. the danger going up. The idea is that word trouble came up a lot early. Are they in
Mm-hmm.
trouble? Oh, they're
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Oh yeah, they're troublesome. Like this idea that troublesome circumnavigates around safety and survival, big key thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that barrier coming down was so great. I had so many thoughts about it, just like the adults kind of getting to see that for the first time and being affected by the beauty of it,
Mm,
but also the scariness of it. How much the sky was also connected to this theme, literally,
mm,
of the great back and forth about, yep, it's a big dark galaxy, but there are helpers, there are shining parts in the dark galaxy, and then to have that be literally what the sky is,
mm,
and these adults are getting to experience it for the first time. Of again, it's a the plot makes perfect logical sense, but it's so visually supported. Of can you imagine these adults who stared up at that, what I think is quite beautiful barrier
yeah, yeah.
for their entire lives,
Mm,
and it's gone, but a different beautiful thing is there now. It reminded me myself of like there's been times that I didn't want to move because the place we lived had this unique, beautiful thing, and there was a fear of letting that beautiful thing go.
mm,
The house that my wife and I owned in South Minneapolis was across from this little pond that had like an old style lamp and two trees perfectly framing it, and we
mm,
would walk through and call it the portal and walk around our beautiful little pond. And
mm,
it was time for us to go, and I didn't want to because I was afraid to let go of that beautiful thing. And then
mm,
because I did, moved here and got a different beautiful view. And like I was thinking about the
mm.
parents' relationship, not only with fighting pirates and their entirely new economic system they're going to have, but also just how deep that is
Yeah.
to have had one beautiful sky your whole life and then be presented with a different one. The
Mm.
vastness of that change is powerful when you're an adult.
Yeah. Not better, different. I love
Hmm.
that. Mm,
A different kind of beauty. One of the other kind of barrier themes for me is about Jod. Lots of different ways to discuss Jod's revelation and the little bit of his Jedi backstory that we do get to hear. Um, but I feel like what happened with him is quite straightforward. Just from the little bit of story that we get, is the parents might be controlled by complacency, and with that, a kind of fear. Jod is trapped by his own fear, right? In my opinion, he wants connection. That very first scene of the entire series, to me, is a little legend to the map of Jod.
mm-hmm.
He says it's leading you to the only thing that matters, credits. But what does he actually lose by not having credits? His connection to his family. He ends up alone in a cell, and he continues to lie to himself that what I want is credits, and he is afraid to admit, but I want them because I think they will buy me what I'm afraid to admit I want, which is connection. Because I've told myself the galaxy is dark and there's no hope, but admitting I want family is vulnerability, longing for family is hope, and I'm going to put up that big shiny barrier and tell everyone that all I want is credits. That's my take on who Jod is and what he's wrestling with. Ken, what are your Jod barrier thoughts?
We talked about it previously. Jod lacked the love and shelter that he was yelling at the kids for having, right? And that
Hmm.
comes up a lot. And yeah, I rewatched the first episode yesterday. Yeah, and that first scene has so much more meaning now. That's the joy of this series on rewatch, I'm sure. Yeah, I love what you're saying of just the seeking loudly and boldly this idea of treasure, that you're going to bathe in it and all your pain and problems will go away. And then even the idea that he's got this, essentially, he's almost going to walk out with this. But even then, it's like, yeah, I'm going to force you all to work for me. I'm going to take away all your family connections to be, working underneath me. I shall be your ruler. I'll slide in. I killed the supervisor. I killed the droid. It's now me, and even there's a line with the pirates when they're rounding up the citizens. There's a, something like, it's like, now you're gonna work for us, and and just him kind of being like, see, I got it all. And I think
Hmm.
there's a little bit of when he loses it all. There's that one moment, things are the room's really bright, from the outside fighting the light,
Hmm.
and it focuses, and there's just this like eyes closed, deep breath, it's a sense of loss for me. I'm reading it. Like I said, a lot of different ways to read it. I read it as I've lost it all again, or I never had it, and I'm broken. It's a big therapeutic moment. But he keeps making bad choices, and that's more about some of the lessons of John we can talk about. But that's kind of where I went with it. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah,
Wonderfully complicated.
That line that he wants them to just keep doing what they're doing, crafting the one thing that means something in this galaxy. That like his lie to himself that credits is what matters is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Jen, how did you feel about Jod and his what his barrier is?
The line that stuck out to me was when he yelled, "No one's coming to save you, boy. Grow up."
Yeah.
And that really was like, oh, as you said, Ken, he's talking to himself. It's something he's been having to tell himself over and over again, that the bad people win, the good people don't. And in that moment, it looks like a little smirk of just what, where it's like, for me, I read it as someone did save these kids. The good people did win. And there's something kind of comforting in knowing that he was proven wrong, I think, is how it felt. Like, oh, actually it gives him a little bit of hope. I don't know.
Are you feeling there's a moment where he's watching the pirate ship, the frigate crash
go down? It's the last moment with him.
Yeah.
And then he has that light in his eyes.
Yes.
And that's the last shot of him.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's to me that what I was talking about, that's Star Wars Redemption moment in that one look for me.
Exactly. What a fantastic actor he is. Boy, that we could get that specificity from that look. That's what we need in Star Wars more of. When you don't have to say anything. You just look. Bravo.
Yeah. I mean, I think the moment where they pulled down the barrier, the X-Wings are coming through, Wim's got the lightsaber, like, yeah, he could probably take that lightsaber and kill everyone in that room, right? And maybe he could even mount an attack against someone, but that just like, he doesn't really want to slaughter everyone, and like, you got me moment. But then I loved that final moment with him of the pirate ship is going down, and it's like his dream is going down, his dream of getting the credits and getting his family back and truly having everything he wants. But that look up, I love that. I feel like it can be interpreted at least two ways. He looks up with the light in his eyes, and I think part of it is like we had a battle of Jedi story versus pirate story, and what do you know? Jedi story of hope and helping each other won. Good on you, kid. But to me, there's also and I thought of a clever way out of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because there's it's all over for me. Wait, I got an idea. I felt like it was almost like, what all is he processing? Is he like, these kids are reminding me that, being clever, working together, don't give up hope.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a nice moment of don't give up hope. But for him, it's like, and I can escape to rob and plunder another day. Like,
what's the line?
That level of what is he feeling hope about?
Yeah.
I love the ambiguity of.
Yeah, there's the line earlier from Alfred Molina's voice character of, fire in your belly and a scheme in your heart, or whatever it is, or strike that line and reverse it, as Wonka would say. But yes, I think I absolutely with you. I think they had that both. It was a journey, as Jen said. It's a journey in a look, where I think there's a little bit of, he's been speaking to the kids as if he speaks to himself and what he believes, and I do believe he doesn't kill them. There's even some it doesn't have to be like this. He keeps saying that because I think he really has formed that connection with him to a point. And that's to me kind of going, you know what, these kids got what I never got, and I'm happy for them, but I'm still going. And
exactly, that's it.
And that's why, and he's gone, and that's why it's to me the call and answer is Wim seeing that, knowing it, and calling his name.
Yeah,
that worked. That's where it worked for me.
Yeah. The whole troublesome thing, and the, Jen, I think you're so right to point out that great line of no one's coming to save you, boy. Like, the subtext of all those lines to me is, stop making me question my life view. Just agree with my philosophy.
Right.
There's a lot of those arguments, generational change that's going on, and has probably gone on forever. But there's a lot of could you please stop making sense? I'm going to go back to burying my head in the sand, which isn't just about not changing, but it's about maybe the older generation feeling the loss that they didn't get to experience that, right? The parents could have done that. The parents could have been like, stay back, stay safe. We're not doing this. Eat your space lasagna. And there could have been a level of, I'm not going to, no, I didn't get that. You don't get that. And I think Judd had that until that moment of, I didn't get it, but at least you did for a second.
Yeah. And everything does ultimately hinge on Farah, what we can see the most powerful human adult non-droid on this planet in this civilization, as far as we know, being asked to do the scariest thing possible, make a choice outside the rules for yourself, with no droid or structure to guide you, just human connection with your child. What do you choose? And, we've talked a lot about this show presenting and reminding us that choices are both scary and wonderful. And what a powerful moment to resolve the actual conflict by the adult taking the mantle of actual authority and making a choice.
Yeah, something that's actually about their survival and actually about true protection, right?
Which leads me into another thing that we've been talking about, but I want to drill down on a little bit. The whole idea of stronger together. This is one of those Star Wars, lessons that to me is like goes all the way back to Luke can't blow up the Death Star without Han and Chewie showing up to help him. The tons of blatant images of that. Farah and Wendell's hands both grabbing the lever. Fern and Wim, both grabbing the lightsaber. As you said, Jen, I thought it was so great that the plan to stop the pirates had multiple moving parts. It wasn't everything hinged on Wim picking up the blade. And so there was this contrast between the fantasy of, I'll be the one Jedi with the lightsaber who saves everyone. It was I will be a member of my community and I will do my part in this moving plan. And have more specifics and thoughts on that. But Ken, how did you feel about that? That it was this kind of straightforward, at risk of being saccharine message of stronger together, but none of us felt the saccharine, felt the power of it. How did you feel about the stronger together theme?
Felt the truth of it. This ties to the line that I know has moved a lot of people with Fern about, they're good people. In every bad place, there was good people there too. And the culmination of this journey that we're going on, where you said it, Neil rolling out of the light when he used to be just falling, and he got better at falling. But that, and everyone had their skills. And KB, I love the moment with her, one of her moms saying, you know how to fix things. Like it's the sum of the parts becoming this true team, and every part is needed. And the imagery of both parents, the imagery of Wim, and there's more to it I want to talk about later on, but just like Wim telling this outlandish story that everyone knows is fake, but with great purpose behind it to save someone, using your skills to save a person, to protect. The saying, you're no Jedi. Something we've heard in Star Wars before, but just because he's using this blade to harm, he's using his powers to harm, and Jod making that choice. Yeah, and I like it too, because going back to episodes 1 and 2, and there's a lot of conversation that I think we're correct about suburbs and the weird eerie safety of the suburbs, and it's connected but it's not, and everything. But this was about real community, and I think it's valuable.
Yeah. Jennifer, how did you feel about the stronger together message and the way it was shared in this show?
I think it's a great commentary on how we all succeed as a society. It's not just individual choices. It really is people coming together and coming up with a plan, which I love that the kids did. It wasn't Wim making a rash decision, and obviously there was some improvisation going along as you're talking about with his story and Fern jumping in. But ultimately, the kids had a plan of what they needed to do. They came together and they did it, and they got the adults behind them to help. So I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah. I really love the specificity that we did get to see the kids using their skills, that, Fern's leadership and determination, and her better communication skills of explaining things better to her mother instead of just saying, do it. So we see what she learned. We see all of KB's technical skills and ability. Like you said, Ken, I love Wim's storytelling, which, that goes back to the pep speech that he got from Jod of like, imaginations, you're good at imagination. Don't be mad at yourself about it. Stories have value. Use your imagination. And he's doing it. I think that Neil kind of cracks me up because I feel like his growth is he's not afraid. He jumps right in and does everything. That's his growth. But in terms of, you run down the list of Fern's leadership, Wim's imagination, KB's skill. With Neil, it's he knows where a big gun was in terms of what his practical contribution was. Like, fair enough. He's good at baths and knowing where secret big guns are.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing to me about all this was you said it, Jen, of where they used to shout out what they're going to do and then debate it. This was a plan. Then whenever the plan went a little bit sideways, they improvised and they yes-anded. Like the absolute basic rule of improv. You know, when somebody says we're in a forest and starts the scene that way, and people are like, yeah, a forest in a mall, or, you yes-and it instead of denying it. And I love that was Neil's like, hey, I know how to help with that, with getting you covered. And everybody's like, great, thanks. Not how, be sure to take this street, don't do that. And one of the biggest ones is that Fern yes-ands Wim's wild imaginative story. Instead of rolling her eyes, she joins in on the story. And it isn't even like, this is a good idea. It's like, yeah, I just need to keep Jod's attention because I see what's really going on. The yes-anding of each other, the stronger together that way, was really powerful to me as well.
There's a lot in this series, the entire adventure. You're talking about the adventure growing up a lot, but the good choices can come out of bad choices. Do I think, going back to the beginning of this, that, Wim presses a button that he shouldn't have and creates this entire situation. And it's easy to look back and go like, well, they needed to go on this adventure and they needed to break down the barrier. That's the story. That's the storytelling. But going back to just that moment, I'm like, maybe it wasn't the best choice, but they have to go forward. And life is about a continued series of choices, and good ones can come. And to all have to come to this moment where you're talking about with this plan-ish in place, but then it's just about springing into action, and it's about togetherness. It's about hearing, listening, communication, and making better choices as you go along when you need to make them. I think that's wonderful. And I'm trying to think, is it that Neil, I pitched this to you, sir, is it that Neil had his heart open to Hannah, not just because he may have had a crush on her, but just he's an empathetic, compassionate person, and that earned him the knowledge of the gun? Is that what it is? If we all open our hearts, we can get a gun.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, that was really about compassion when he found a big gun on top of a school and and shot some pirates. That's what real compassion is.
That's what it is.
No, I agree with you. It's just
No,
I feel like the other kids were a little bit more on point.
No, I think you're right.
What they had learned. And that wasn't a thing that Neil learned. That was a thing that Neil always knew. So I guess maybe like Wim valuing his imagination, it was Neil saying, being curious, asking questions, caring about other people leads to good things, like guns on the roof of schools.
For defense.
Yeah. Jennifer, you have any other thoughts on this sort of stronger together theme?
No, not on that. No.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to talk about specifically, and definitely want to hear other thoughts and nuances that you both have. I wanted to dig in a little bit more on the sort of the Jedi story versus the pirate story, and the idea of what is the real treasure, in particular with these competing lines from Jod and from Fern. When Jod is trying to explain himself in yelling his subtext of "Don't make me change my worldview," he describes the galaxy of it's dark with a few pinpricks of light, and for those I'll kill who I need to kill. His light is literally credits, and I think, frankly, the adult pleasures that they buy, the nice food, nice adult back rubs on that spa planet. It's dark with a few pricks of light is just fight for money and get money to buy some cheap passing pleasures. In contrast to Fern's great line of everywhere we went, even the worst places, there were good people too, which is just a great celebration of how well structured the show was, with the pirate in the first place they go, who's trying to say, like, your kid's here, you're not safe, let me help you, with Kim with Catholips in an otherwise
Mhm.
awful place. There was Catholips.
Mhm.
So it was so that not as well written show that would just be a nice thing that a kid says. This is entirely supported by the journey that they went on
Mm.
because you can name the good people that they ran into. But
Mhm.
I really felt like those lines were tied together because they both painted a literal picture of the night sky. It is mostly vast, scary darkness, but there are these pinpricks of light. Uh,
Mm.
but these such similar lines said with such different meaning of if we all agree that the galaxy is vast and dark and scary with these few pinpricks of light, which are we going to concentrate on? And Jod is entirely focused on the darkness. And what Fern is saying to her mom is, we can be overwhelmed by the darkness and the scariness, or we can concentrate on those few pinpricks of light and choose to be those pinpricks of light through our individual actions.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
Ken, how did you feel about those lines in that just kind of blatant this the agreement between the heroes and the villains that yep,
Mm. Yep.
Galaxy's awful,
Yep.
but how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, there's a bucket of theme ideas I put down of real heroes, the truth behind the stories, and be that pinprick of light. And I was moved by this greatly. I love that we got just enough of Jod's backstory. We didn't get a name, we didn't get a time. The words, Order 66, Sith, Jedi, none of that was mentioned. The
She
fall
was
of the
killed by the fifth brother,
yeah,
yeah.
and then the fifth brother showed up. And by the way, I love all that stuff in Star Wars. Don't ever get me wrong. I was moved by his story. I was moved by this idea of Jod as an example of what can happen when people aren't the light. Now, I want to make sure, and you touched on it. Jod took that pain. He swirled around until it absolutely consumed him. It's about choices. It is absolutely about the choices, even the bad ones, leading to more bad ones in Jod's case. But I was moved by that and moved on focusing on that with everything going on constantly. It's never ending, but the world right now, locally, like I said up top, things in my life. It's just the idea of if just one person can help, if Catholics can just listen, if you can be that light, you never know who you're affecting, and you never know who you're changing. You never know what you're doing, and it's hard to right now. It's hard to focus on that. Right? It's hard to look out into our own worlds and focus on those one little pinpricks of light. But when you can find real heroes, and the show has things about seize the imposter. He's pretending to be. You're no Jedi. It's these titles that people might wear to call themselves heroes and make you think that they're heroes. Don't necessarily guarantee that they're heroes. It's the choices, and that's the truth behind the stories. This ties in. It really, to me, ties into to Wim. Love the improv game, by the way. We'll zip, zam, zoom, bop around the stage with that. It's such a great moment. But it is him. He's telling the silly story, but it to me, he has learned the lessons of the stories in the imagination that he has. Right. It is hero.
Mhm.
It is the choices in action. It's the lessons of the story in action. He's doing that to save other people. He's not doing that just to be a hero, to simply be a hero. He says that early on in the classroom, right? I don't have the episode 1. I don't have the line in front of me, but like he's kind of
He
like,
wants to help
yeah,
people.
yeah, I want to help people. Yeah, isn't that IMP? It's kind of laughed at. Here he's actually doing it. He's being that pinprick of light, and I absolutely love it. John's a whole other thing. I was moved by it. I was sad by it. His the anger and the vitriol and the hurt in his story. That line you mentioned, no one's coming for you, boy. No one, no one. It's lived, it's earned, unfortunately for him. And just imagine if along the way, other than the Jedi, which he seems to have an affinity for clearly, but even has this like, I don't know, she was desperate enough to take pity on me kind of vibe. She taught me little things before they killed her in front of me. It's just a lesson of the value of being that pinprick of light and what it
Yeah,
can
I
do.
mean, his story is great about like kind what we talk about a lot in Star Wars villains of understanding the pain that they went through that might lead
Mhm.
them to these choices of like, yeah, if he was, alone and desperate and hungry and somebody saved him and saw value in him and taught him, and then he was
Mhm.
made to watch her be murdered.
Mhm.
Totally understandable that he puts up a barrier to of fear
Mhm.
to connection and hope of like I'm never going to let myself feel that hope again, and neither should you, is all very relatable. But I thought it was powerful that this episode was called The Real Good Guys, and Wim went on this whole journey of trying to figure out who the real good guy is. And
Yeah.
I think from a storytelling perspective, he is right that the New Republic are good guys. But Jod reintroduced that complexity of Star Wars. I really believe that he doesn't want to kill anyone, but he will for what he wants.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't want to kill these kids, and he really need to be pushed to his absolute limit to kill one of these kids. So at the day, what's making him a villain is just his choices, and he could make a different choice at any time.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people like to say Star Wars it's good because it's such a simple story of black and white, and people said that a lot about New Hope, even the actors when it came out.
Yeah.
I don't think Star Wars has been a simple story of black and white since 1980. Since Luke learned it's not as simple as my friends are in danger, so I take a big sword and I kill the bad guy. What if you have the potential to be the bad guy? What if the bad guy is more complex than you realize? That's introduced in 1980. And so I'd like that this show can have such straightforward, hopeful messages of choose hope, choose family, push past your fear and experience wonder, work together with the team. It has all these great, solid, straightforward messages. But I think the Jod part of it gives it that complexity and ambiguity that heightens it. But we're kind of having this fun plot game throughout the whole series of, is he a good guy or a bad guy? He's a guy with power and agency, and every day, every moment, he can choose who he is through his actions.
Yeah.
And that's not as simple of a tale. That's a much harder. We want people to be good guy, bad guy. You're in two buckets, and we're all complex, and we need to make choices. Jennifer, what are your thoughts on some of the themes we've talked about? I see you've been jotting down some notes.
I'm taking notes, you guys. I got okay. All right. I don't know where we're gonna go. So what I think with the Jedi versus pirates, the good versus the bad, for me, one of the most interesting things was that class determines how you view the world. Rather, class and wealth can determine how you view the world. So Jod, coming from this traumatic background, and poor background, he views the world as dangerous and people are bad and you have to fight for your survival. You can't have attachments. You need riches, blah, blah, blah. The kids come from, middle class, upper middle class, and they're like, the world is bad. It's scary. It's dangerous because that's what they've been told. That's what their parents believe. But they both go on these journeys. And what I thought was so great about this show is it doesn't hammer this message home each episode. The Mandalorian can sometimes kind of feel like that with each episode where it's like, okay, we're going to meet someone along the way and they're going to help our heroes. And even though that did happen in many of these episodes of Skeleton Crew, I didn't really ever feel like it was heavy-handed. Do you know what I mean? Like we see that there are good people, like the dancer quotes on the pirate port, or the creature, or Weird Owl Kim, right? There are good people in this quote unquote bad world. So both of these, the kids and Jod, learn to see the good and the bad, but in different ways. How they come about it is related to their class, really, and the wealth disparities.
Yeah, I love that. No, I
Great.
I love that. And I think Jod has a view of the galaxy of agency. No one is going to help me or get me my basic needs. His hunger speech is even more powerful, knowing that is when he sits awake at night and has a nightmare, it's probably about that horrible feeling of being entirely empty inside and no one is going to come and save you. And if they do, they're going to be murdered in front of you. So he's got this real idea about agency. Only I can get out there and take care of myself, which is a really interesting contrast to the parents' barrier of there's a droid adult God who takes care of me always and provides everything that I need. And in between those views, I think is where the kids, and in the ending, ultimately Wim comes swooping in with this kind of balanced view of like, yes, agency is what defines us. We need to choose to work together. We need to choose to say, Fern's in trouble and there's no droid that's going to come save her. We are working together. That's who we have to be. And I think that's part of what made me, teary watching the final beats of this last episode of, if you work through it in any sort of adult way, what's happening is scary. The sky, is gone. Your planet is vulnerable to being attacked at any time by pirates. Your droid dad parent figure is dead. Your economy is in tatters, and some other new government's going to come in and help you. There's all those very real societal things. And Wim just looking up at those X-Wings, in particular, it's the line, it just is kind of a jokey thing of like, hey, you don't have to take the assessment tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And him realizing that means I get to choose anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in particular, to me, the line that Jod told him in the pep talk is, make your life the one you want to live. It's about agency,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about hope. And the fact that, to me, that last line, that last scene is Wim looking up with the kind words of a broken, cruel pirate echoing through his head of, choice isn't something to be scared of. It's something to delight in. I can make the life I want to live. I can be anything. It's so beautiful. And I think, relatable to people at any age. The three of us as middle-aged people have all talked about, well, we should maybe make some different choices as we get older and things aren't exactly the way we expected or exactly the way we wanted. To be able to access what Wim has on his face, to look up and go, at any moment, I can choose to see choice is a beautiful, hopeful thing, is really powerful, I think.
You're all making, God, this is what the theme bucket dump where it just, both things you both have said just come racing in my mind. First of all, Jen, what you're talking about and the hunger, that makes me want to rewatch, not reevaluate, but confirm the power of Jod having his space oatmeal, having it first, and
oh my
eating,
God,
and going, all right, yeah, it's there for you too. Me first in the Gimme Gimmes, great band from the '90s, Jod right now, and how that plays out, and how your point of view, and how they're and how we're complicated, and I don't want to push it real deep, but the idea of this all-knowing, controlling entity that you don't really see. If you're lucky, you get to see it. But don't worry, just trust in it. It's going to keep us safe. And what happens is supposed to happen. It's not a choice. And if you go against that, if you push against that, that means you are no longer on the good, you are on the bad, as opposed to just being what you've talked about later, Joseph, complicated, layered, and real. And that you can continue to make these choices. And that safety's not bad, having beliefs not bad, having some kind of systems like this isn't inherently bad, but how we are trapped in it. It's all kind of rushing in. And I think Jod kind of going all the way through that is why I think I love this character so much. And I like oatmeal. It all comes together.
That oatmeal point is really good. And I think that's part of the reason that I was affected by that society and their wealth keeps them safe, but also it means they trust a droid so blindly that they hand their child to absolute danger because it's under the umbrella of the absolute trust they have extended to the system, into this authority that they haven't been questioning or asking why of. It was affecting to me. Jennifer, other notes or thoughts that you have scribbled down in our theme discussion?
Yeah, that goes with the theme of complacency, as we've been talking about. And really, like, it was shocking when Wim is trying to tell his dad that something's not right. And Wendell's like, yeah, that's what the supervisor's for. It's going to be okay. It's all right. What's her name? Farah is not like, when she walks in and it's just like a bunch of computers and whatever and dusty and there's a droid, and she's accepted it because this is a great work. I mean, Jod is shocked. And I mean, the sad reality is this is not that far from our reality. And that, I think, is what is most scary. And when the droid says strict obedience to authority has kept At Attin running smoothly for generations, boy, that made me think of Law and Order. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things that we have been hearing recently. And I'm not going to go super political, but I think we have to remember that just because things are running smoothly, maybe we should ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. It's good to have choice. It's good to have agency. And yeah, things may be seen. Okay, don't worry, we're going to take care of it. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to vote again. Don't worry about it. We're going to take it. No, that is why we are here in this country and why we want to have a democracy. The end.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think this show was ultimately it was the power of the people, right? It was
Yes.
the kids saying, let's band together. What is happening is not okay. We have to question it. And adults, you have to question it too. You have to step out of your comfort zone and question the powers that be, which isn't just overthrow all power, anarchy. I don't think they're just going to be like,
Yeah.
the new rule on At Attin is kids rule and we eat candy for breakfast, right? It's that questioning that's so important because, hey, maybe there are reasons for some of our laws. And to me, that's the whole idea of question to see, do we agree with this one? Do we really, truly, with the power of the people, agree with this one? And what is actually not in our best interests? Can't determine those things without questioning, without engaging.
Yeah, just because it's been done that way for generations doesn't mean that it should not change now for a good reason. I think that's the thing that I encounter a lot in my life. Well, that's just how it's been done. Maybe it's not for the best of everyone, but
yeah. Or alternately, sometimes you look into it and you talk to a professional and like, oh,
right, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Is that the way you record audio on a film?
Yeah.
Yep.
But understand that there is a reason why, and that just comes from questioning. And sometimes you'll find out, no, it's just the way everybody's done it, and I want to feel like a pro, so I do it the way it's always supposed to be done. And then you realize, like, no, there's other ways to do it, and you get creative breakthroughs. And other times you're like, oh no, people have tried for generations, they've experimented, and they're experts, and this works. And that's why, to me, I think so much about question, because sometimes you find out, sometimes you learn more, and you go, humans did a good job investigating this. And I believe with my agency that we came to a good answer and I support it. Or wait, this is fear. This is hubris. This is a dictator, and we only can discover those things for our own opinion to inform our own agency if we question.
Yeah. Sometimes the answer to a question is confirmation of the facts there. Yeah, that's one thing, and something I've dealt with, and I think we're all dealing with here. It's just there's sometimes a misunderstanding of what the idea behind questioning is, because a lot of people try to own that for the brands and whatnot, and there naturally becomes a fear of the questions, and it's we all got to break through our droid supervisors, I guess. I don't know. People can take that all different ways, but you know what I mean.
Ken, do you have any other big picture thematic thoughts?
Nah, we got it all there. We got it all. We can be heroes just for one day.
Jennifer, any other thematic thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, I better shut up now. I'm getting angry. I'm getting angry at all sorts of different people. I think I need to eat lunch. I'm getting hangry, as my family would say.
You need some oatmeal. You need some space.
I need some oatmeal.
What if John had used the word hangry in his speech? We're all hangry.
Yeah.
Good practice for Ender season 2. All right, Ken.
He's
pass the
sorry. He does
talking hammer back to you.
No, and he does the whole "we're all hungry" speech. Oh my God, Jed. Yeah, hunger. Oh, interesting. Deep themes there. Looking now here at costumes, creatures, characters. This show has been very successful, Jed, in bringing in some wonderful designs, some creature shops at play, classics going on, stop motion. Phil Tippett, John Knoll, Doug Chang. What do you got for here? Where do you go? What's your highlight?
I think just overall, the show has been a success story on how to integrate aliens and creatures in a way that feels very much quintessential Star Wars. But it is fun to be like, oh, is that an Abednego in it was Violet? Could that be Elo Assi or whatever? I forget that character. Right.
Yeah.
So it's just those fun moments, seeing the Ithorian getting taken by a pirate, like I was like, I love Star Wars. It's just it's silly, it's whimsical, and it's fun. And so I don't really have much because I was so focused on all the other stuff.
Yeah, and all the other shows and all the other movies have succeeded in this section of the costumes, creatures, and characters. That's why we highlighted. I just think this had, I don't know, it just sang, it just popped a little bit more. I don't, and again, it's just this culmination of a lot of things of what the show did and the timing of the show and the idea of just analyzing the need for heroes, but who are the heroes? Like it's powerful. It all comes down in the wonderful designs, even in at the end of the day, the big hubbub coming in was suburbs in Star Wars. What?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I thought it played out wonderfully. I understood, and maybe even had some moments of trepidation myself about what is this, but it worked. It's also, I don't know, you could even say it's technically not in Star Wars because it's only on At Attin. So maybe this is the only well-designed, well-planned suburb in Star Wars. Maybe that will be what's weird. Leia will come out of the blockade runner and be like, what's going on here? Where's your huts and hovels? Where's your huts? This is a planned community. Yeah, I just have loved it. But yes, from Pocket showing up and having her wonderful designs, all the different pirates and playing with that in Star Wars. The music, Mick Giacchino coming through with just, you know,
Oh,
a
yeah.
wonderful adventure theme all the way through, and the pirates and this and familiar and new things, and it all kind of worked, and that made the characters even that much better. But even the drab suburbs, you know, the design of Wendell, from his big frame glasses, the kind of drab onesie almost. It's just kind of a workaday kind of outfit. The cape, the Star Wars cape like style of Farah, and just this air of authority.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, and this is we were doing it too, and I did it off air. Like you look at her outfit, you'd be like, oh, I wonder if she works with Mothma. She has a vibe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it was all wonderfully Star Wars. Yeah, I'm with you,
Mhm.
Joseph.
Definitely agree. I want that was one of the things I wrote down, is to just celebrate Farrah's cape, because
Yeah,
we try to celebrate capes here
we
on this
do.
this show. But
Mm.
Farrah's was great, and particularly to see her in that sort of cape, which we associate with authority,
Mhm.
being held hostage, being, you know, literally by Jod, but also by her own fear, and like, listen to your child and earn that cape.
Yeah, yeah.
Was great. But great design. Ken, I really like what we were saying about just the big picture design of the suburbs. I thought the design of the supervisor was great, with just kind of like this giant droid head with the big arms. It did evoke a little bit of a kind of Wizard of Oz.
Mhm.
Uh, the design of having a blue light and a red light is so simple, but also for me, like, it really evoked what I have personally experienced with, frankly, some of my friends' parents in suburbs, who had the everything is nice and perfect and safe on the surface,
Mm.
and I'm, but they were ego driven, controlling, scary authority figures, and they would charm people with the blue light, but
Mm.
if you cross them at all, the red light of don't touch my control, don't touch my fragile masculinity and my need to be dad to the whole world. It's like blue light, red light, good,
Mhm.
bad. But to me, I felt so much more of that suburban story of the controlling paternal figure that can pat you on the head and then turn nasty the second that you violate. Yeah, it was kind of visceral.
There was a moment I was at a friend's house, one of my church family kids, and we were watching TV, and I didn't even, a commercial was on, and I made a joke at the commercial because guess what career I went into, and the nice, loving, supportive mom shot in the room and put a finger in my face and said, "We don't do that here. We don't talk back to the
Wow.
TV."
Wow.
Don't talk back to the television. Well, I'm sure Mystery Science Theater gave her a heart attack. She died. But
Mm.
if just in final big picture thing about the design of the suburb, yeah, we talked about it. I really hope that it would be a story not set in a Star Wars suburb, but a story about what
Mhm.
suburbs can be, and not all suburbs are this. But yes, safety with the danger of control and stifling everything else. There's also that in the actual story, that truth of the real world, that a lot of our bigger cities are messy organic structures, because our actually paths through them were either created by, like in Boston, that's the way the oxen carts went, or in LA, like a crazy entrepreneur built, train lines out to places he could sell land. And now it's this messy, flowing, organic structure that doesn't make sense. But suburbs
Mm.
are planned in rows and controlled. And even that reality of our real world, of
Mhm.
the genuine human space is messy and organic, and the danger of this controlled, organized space that can be sort of custom made, and probably is the actual story of At Attin and the other jewels of the Old Republic, right? Of like, so we would like you to live on this planet for generations, and we're going to seal you in forever and make a real nice, Hobbit trails for you guys, because that's where you're staying forever.
That's where you go.
All that stuff is in the design.
Yeah, no, I think it all played out well, and like I said up top, I understood the question of it, but it just was used so well. I don't know. Again, this is every Star Wars series for me. I really do believe it, but there's just so much love in the designs, and it's because it's all the same people. It's all the veterans, and it's new folks working with them, and just bringing back Phil Tippett in his shop. Just loved it. Just loved everything.
Yeah. Frog Dog. Yeah, great. Go for it, Jennifer.
One last thing I want to say, that the beauty of the suburbs is that I think, to me, this reason why this felt the closest to A New Hope was when I remember watching A New Hope as a kid, it felt like maybe that's what life is going to be like in the future. And I think this show, because I love The Mandalorian, I love Book of Boba Fett because of his creatures and aliens, right? But this blended the creatures, the aliens, the weird with something very real in our world of the suburbs. And it felt, I think that's why my daughter was able to connect with it in a way that she has not connected with some of the other Star Wars shows, is that it felt like our distant future. It felt like a galaxy far, far away. But it really did. And I think that was kind of a perfect note to strike. Yeah. At least to have in our Star Wars buffet.
Yeah. No, I really agree. Of evolving from so many stories that we have, starting with Luke, that go out from there, of that's more rural, that's more down on the farm. But what a lot of people are experiencing as they grow up is some various version of suburban life, and it's not always bad. And I've had some great times in suburbs and all that. Yeah. It's not what all suburbs are, but it is how they started and the anxieties around them as they started in our real world. And bringing more people in that way is great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Quick swing through Canon Connections, larger Star Wars story. This actually, again, X-Wings and a blockade runner and all those things. But I think there's a bigger question that hangs over it that's not answered, and I'm glad it's not answered, of what to do with At Attin going forward. Joseph, if you have any thoughts, ideas, desires? We have the head canon. We have the New Republic going, some money. That sounds fun. Which you could say cynically, but where do you go with now that At Attin is free? It's free.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm being informed by my opinions about Leia and Mothma, and frankly, mostly in publishing some of the stories that we've gotten. We got a peek at it in Ahsoka of the New Republic is just really is really trying their best, and I think being good emissaries. So I see that ship coming in, and my mind floods with like Leia walking down and going, "Wow, you've all been through a lot. I know this is scary. How can we help you be part of the galaxy?"
Yeah.
Maybe the economy still makes sense, but there's also like the cool older. We get to picture that those credits were valuable because of their scarcity, because they're from the Old Republic. So, and I've seen other people talking about that. I don't think the New Republic is just like, great.
Yep.
Now it's like that joke in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where they make leaves the economy and everybody's rich. Like I don't think about the New Republic coming in and going, great, here's a mint. The mint was only going to be valuable to Jod because he was going to sneak it out a little bit at a time to people who still believed it was scarce.
Yeah.
And he knew it wasn't. So I think the New Republic's totally coming down there of like, what can we do for you? And like that look on Wim's face, I think the New Republic is going to be presenting to every adult like, in a way, who do you want to be? What do you want to be as a society? What do you want to do as individuals? And maybe even it's the world that I think is like, we had to shut down the auto plant, but what other industry would you be interested in? What other industry could this planet and this economy do? Like, my mind is strangely flooded with very adult ideas of what At Attin could be, and the romantic idea of it's scary that maybe the industry you do now doesn't entirely make sense.
Yeah.
But we could help you figure out a new one. It's a very adult political idea, but the emotion of that is all Wim. Looking up at the sky and going, I can make my life the one I want to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, thoughts on that? Or and if I am I it's not a fact that that's Leia's ship, or it just was the imagery that I'm like, I would love in my head. I love the idea that it's Leia on that ship.
Yes. And then in my head, I'm like, please don't show Leia. Please don't show Leia, for the love of God. They did not, thank goodness. We can just imagine. I really didn't have too many canon ideas. And I think I don't mind that, actually. I saw some people online wishing that it had connected more to the Mandoverse and wishing, we had gotten more things. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, there are some things that, you can pull these threads. But I'm all right with just right now having just some questions and concerns in the next section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, for the Canon, the B-Wings was
Mhm.
great, and that was fun. I know we saw the Frog Dog before, but I really appreciated the nice shot of the Thorian's Frog Dog. I
Mhm.
thought the one line, there are two lines that were like, ooh, this is kind of crunchy to get into canon lore stuff and be more technical. I feel like Star Wars functions where usually hyperspace moves at the speed of narrative,
Yeah.
however long it takes in the story for people to travel. And like, that's one of the things that people get cranky about with the Rise of Skywalker, that they're getting across the galaxy too fast.
Mhm.
So I thought it was kind of fun in a show that was largely not concerned with sort of canon and lore, that they specifically had Kim say, "I've got a hyperspace route straight to you," was one of the few lines in this show where I felt like the character, like Kim, could have turned to the camera and said, "So get off my back about canon. There's a reason the X-Wings are showing up this fast.
Yeah.
Don't." Kim could have turned to the camera and was like, "Don't skeet on blue sky at Pablo Hidalgo about why the X-Wings got there so fast. It's because the damn hyperspace lane I got right here."
I haven't studied it. Yeah.
That kind of cracked me up.
Well, because she's typing too, right? I got it. I got one in my portfolio. Love that.
Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
think the big thing with me is the timing with the history of the planet. Of the last communication we got from the Republic was
Mhm.
that the Jedi were traitors, which that to me, that's like a fun, interesting rabbit hole of, if the entire galaxy thought this was a hidden jewel, did Palpatine actually have access to it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Reply it. Yeah.
or if that's,
Mhm.
yeah, if their definition of older Republic versus the Republic that existed in the prequel era, and like all that sort of technicality. But I thought that was fun, knowing that was the last thing that they heard was Order 66. One would
Mhm.
imagine.
Yeah, no, and for me, the final thought of that too, Jen, you raised it of the timeline. Look, it was pitched as being in the Mandoverse, but even I would say that was always kind of loose. And I know there's the stories of this was one pitched as a movie, two pitched as an old Republic story or just a High Republic story. That's just the development process. That's what happens. You come to Lucasfilm, hey, we got an idea, or in this case, you come to Johnny Favs on the set of Spider-Man. I got an idea. Oh, okay, well, we're doing this. What if you just did it here? And then you can then play at the New Republic. Then you can have X-Wings and all that kind of stuff. So who cares how they got there? They got there. And once the series started, I think it was pretty clear that though you couldn't write off the idea of cameos or questions or Mothma or Leia show up and not have the questions that we have or the thoughts that you're having, Joseph. That's part of the fun. But I love that this show just stayed true to what it wanted to do and tell its own story. And that worked for me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone like I want Kenobi too. I'll take 8 episodes of him in his new hut. I love that stuff. But this was freedom. And you know what? It just hit me. I was always afraid of the question. And now we've questioned it and we got something new and it doesn't take away from what I loved before. I confirmed that I loved before and I also love something new. The barrier came down on canon connections.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. I keep saying I love the variety, and
Yeah.
I expect Mando and Grogu to be packed with
Mhm.
familiar faces and surprising connections and moments of cheering for Star Wars fans in the theater.
Yeah,
And it was really nice to have the variety of something else that didn't have that.
indeed.
Jennifer, if the show ended with Mothma walking off that ship, that would have been like a fun pop for us, and it would have made logical sense to Star Wars fans. How do you think your kids would have reacted to, like, red-haired lady, we're not sure who she is?
Yeah, I think it would have taken the focus off of the kids, and then my daughter been like, "Who's that?" Oh, we constantly are having to pause the episode for my 5-year-old who was getting grumpy and my 9-year-old asking questions. It would have been too much. I might have been like, oh, cool, right? But yeah, it was not necessary. And that's what I think that the show's strength is that it knows when to have. Well, actually, I don't think it had too many of those. I was going to say what's his name? The pilot that everyone always wants that they like. Who's the pilot?
Carson Teva.
Yes, Carson Teva. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that he didn't show up, right? Like, I don't need that. I don't think it adds anything.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody who's just watching this for the first time, like, a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right, Jen, you're up. You said you got some questions. You said you had some concerns. Hit us.
There were a couple things that I thought were really kind of convenient for the plot, but but that's okay. It's okay. I think it's good because it was telegraphing it for the kids. Like, oh, there's a barrier override button. Okay, all right. Or like the fact the power went out. My husband's like, that's not realistic. They would absolutely have a generator. I was like, yeah, you're right.
They would.
Yeah, right.
When the lights do come on at the end, their system kicked in.
The system kicked in. And then for me, I was just like, gosh dang it. Who is the real supervisor? Who programmed this droid? Like, who? That's really the thing that I didn't need an answer on. But boy, that's the old Star Wars fan in me that's like, I must have answers now. Where is the comic book that I can refer to? Right? So I have to be okay with not knowing. It's all right. I'm going to be okay.
Well, and for me, I feel like it's probably like, Zoc Brandow, whoever was chancellor in the Old Republic, however many generations ago. Like, it doesn't, that I feel like that's one of those, like, yeah, we did get excited by some of these kind of red herrings.
Yeah.
But I feel like the answer is sort of like, some leader you never heard of came up with the idea for the Jewels of the Old Republic.
And that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
But I want to believe it's Snoke or the Emperor. Why not? Well, definitely not Snoke, but the Emperor.
I liked that line about connecting it. Maybe it is the Old Republic, and maybe that is command is something about a Jedi Sith war. Who knows? But it did read to me as Order 66, which just opens up the door of like, great, that can be played with in comics or books or an animated show. What did Palpatine know about this planet and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, look, this even goes back to Force Awakens for me. It's not that there wasn't reason to have some fun speculative questions. King No Head, Tak Renaud's face not being there, but of course, and I'm with you too, Jed. I'd love a little more now that we know, but I love that Tak Renaud was just a tale, real, I believe, but a tale that it was inspired both in good and bad ways. Or King No Head was a person who set this up, and maybe it was the person that programmed it, and just. The what is not important, as we always say here, but it's fun to wonder. And I had the thought of like, great, well, let's go save Hana and her family and her planet. But then I had to I realized like, all right, I think the implication is there that she will break the cycle. Lesson learned, and you can run with that in your imagination. But I going back to, like I said, Force Awakens. Whose staff is that? Who's their parents? Yeah, the movie made you wonder. But we have to be open to what's after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like the show is literally successful on me in that I felt from the first 2 episodes that this is going to be a tale of the danger of mechanization and giving over your control to a system. And so I thought, the supervisor is going to be a droid. It's going to be a Wizard of Oz thing. But the red herrings with King No Head, and not just Tak Renaud not having a face, but them underlining it with a line.
Yes.
I feel like it is very purposeful in the writing to make you question. Because I started questioning of like, what? Maybe this is something to do with the pirates, because those red herrings were successful for me. But I also think they're fun stories for another time of who is Tak Renaud, who is King No Head. Is King No Head just at Akron, Ohio, or have something to do with the origin story of the Jewels of the Old Republic? So I felt okay with those things being misdirection for now, in future storytelling for later.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right. Usually towards the end of the show, we look towards the next week, predictions for the future. But final quick thoughts here on, I don't know, we hear John Watts, Christopher Ford, they want a season 2. That's a big question for the business of it all. There's been the stories out there that the the numbers are lower, and a lot of people love using that to build up their narratives about the Acolyte and what damage it did. And I've seen a lot of that, quite frankly, people I know, and it's been troubling, but not without some sort of truth of numbers are down. But as we said before, numbers are kind of down everywhere. Who's watched Severance? 15 of your friends. That's about it. But
they all love it.
They all love it. It's winning awards. Andor, low rated. There's a lot of things to it. Molly Davin tweeted out something I've said before. We've all said before here of like, sometimes your person who's not in the culture wars is just going, oh, I heard that was bad, and therefore they didn't watch it. I have a friend who watched Solo like 3-4 years after it came out and was like, oh, this was good. Why did people say it was bad? I'm like, I didn't. You didn't listen to me. All that aside, season 2 thoughts, ideas. Do you even want it, Jen?
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I think John Watts, Christopher Ford, they get Star Wars, give them more Star Wars, give us a season 2. I think going forward, if they what they could do right now actually is advertise on the Disney Channel. I've been getting basic cable, and let me tell you, when they want you to watch something, they will advertise it every single commercial. The Descendants 3 movie, we ended up watching it because they advertised it so much. I only saw one commercial for Skeleton Crew. They could absolutely put more because the kids are watching it and the parents are like, all right, fine, we'll put on the Skeleton Crew. I've seen so many ads for it. So that's what I would say. Market more. Market.
Yeah. I think we are dealing with the wrap up of phase 1 of streaming reality, and in particular Disney Plus streaming and Lucasfilm streaming. This one got delayed for a year. I think everybody's interested in looking at a different model of streaming. The Acolyte was, I think they put their backs into Acolyte and they didn't get the viewership numbers, and the conversation was toxic, unfortunately, because the darkness in the galaxy came for the pinpricks of light in that conversation. And so I think they're just like, here, take a Skeleton Crew. In fact, take it over 2 holidays.
Yeah.
I don't think they put their back into it. And maybe they will now. Maybe it'll come out earlier on physical media. Maybe they'll do a push for awards. Maybe they'll really get their back behind getting Jude Law in award. I think it'll be interesting to see, like, do they now that it is out, well reviewed, well liked largely by the people who are paying attention, will they try to put it across as a success? Is a big question to me. I'm going to circle back, Ken, to answer your season 2 question, but also admit not a question or concern. I love this show, but I know people disagree with me, but I'm going to say my opinion. I absolutely felt this was pitched as a movie. I did the math, and the whole thing is about 4.5 hours, and this would have been a banger of a 2.5 hour movie as well. And I appreciate every second I got with Neil and with Jod and quality time with Catholips. And there's a lot of beautiful details we would lose, but this story is, in my opinion, 1000% structured as a film, down to this is the page number that the inciting incident happens on. And it didn't diminish the show that much for me. I felt, to me, there was one weak cliffhanger. Neil fainting was a weak cliffhanger. To me, again, my opinion, didn't terribly diminish the show, but I am tired of feeling like creators pitched a movie and then were asked to kind of roughly reshape it into a television show. And I think I can see the difference between Mandalorian, particularly the first season of Mandalorian, which was always a television show. So that is my criticism, and part of it is being tired of that in general, and Skeleton Crew taking some of the splash damage of me being tired of that in general. But my hope for season 2 is, I hope there is one, and let John Watts and Christopher Ford do a television show from the beginning. If they have an idea for, it's 4 years later, the kids are all 16 and 18, and we got super tall, deep voiced Wim, and they decide, you know what, we're going to go rescue him, at Akron, or whatever adventure they decide to go on, and they team up with Jod and hope he can make a difference, all that kind of thing, that maybe it is, and it's built as a television show. That would be fabulous to me.
Yeah, the movie thing, I again, talk about this being a different era where this is pitched, conceived. You absolutely know that someone said, "Oh, this is great. All right, so we're gonna do it as a series. Do you got the series pitch?" And they went, "Oh, of course, yes, and this, that, yeah." And I think now this might be, we'd be hearing John Watts has a Star Wars movie coming. Like, I think we're just a couple years, and again, the delay. Can't forget the delay of a year, which was officially unofficial. Like it was never really addressed. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that too. And you feel it. And look, I just rewatched Kenobi. It works as a series for me. But yeah, you could feel where some of the movie stuff was there. But that's not a bad thing. It's just acknowledging. Yeah, that's where we're at. But I'm with you. It's a weird time going forward in business, huh?
Yeah, I would absolutely love more Jod. I would love him ideally in a season 2. I'd like to see him reckon with the kids when they're older.
Yeah.
But I would love to see any sort of Jod storytelling with Jude Law, and I really appreciated that it didn't wrap up as clean as he's redeemed and he ends hugging the kids, or he gets shot in the head by or by Wendell, or that he's in prison and scowling.
Yeah.
But that he looks up with some kind of hope. And that's the last beat we leave him on. It's fantastic. And I'd be happy with that if we never saw him again. But man, do I really want to see that character again.
Same. That's yeah. I'd love to see all these characters again if they show up in another show, series, movie, whatever. But the fact that you have Watson Ford saying no, oh yeah, you better believe we got some thoughts about how we'd like to go forward. I hope, I'm hopeful it'll happen, but tragedy of the acolyte and all that kind of stuff. Who knows with the business? Who knows? But and two, John, it's wide open for me. Love it. Jen, any final thoughts on a possible season 2?
Yes, Lucasfilm, you have gold. If it comes out in 2 or 3 years, it's actually great because then they're going to be full-fledged teenagers. And the kids that are watching right now are going to either be preteens or teenagers themselves. We need more stories like this in Star Wars. This is what's going to keep Star Wars going, is by getting the youths. My husband and I both afterwards were like, that was a freaking home run. And yes, it should have been a movie. It could have been a movie. But let these kids continue growing up with these characters. I think that they have something really special. The kid actors are great. They have a great chemistry. Jude Law's fantastic. Give us more.
Yep, that's how you build for the future. Yeah, I still want more of the legacy characters. I still want to explore all that. But I remember having a conversation with someone at a bar at a party, going, "Oh yeah, I showed the original trilogy to my friend, and she said, whoa, those things don't hold up, right?" And I just remember thinking, oh, I'm old. But that was their truth. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Final question. What is one thing, toy, merchandise, memorabilia? What do you want from this episode, Jen?
The walkie-talkies. I want it. My kids love walkie-talkies when we go camping. And I could just see myself in that forest, and I would be pretending to be Wim.
That is
Come
great.
in, Neil. That'd be so fun.
I love that. I said it already earlier. I want to heat up my lasagna with whatever that was. Super duper air fryer, electric oven. I don't know what it was. I want it now.
It was going so back to the classic origins of Star Wars, which is what if space was the 1970s? It was so futuristic 1970s, see-through microwave.
Slightly Tupperware-ish. Yeah.
Slightly Tupperware-ish. Yeah. Home cooked meal. Yeah. We didn't talk much about 33 because I think he
yeah, good point.
He had his moment. He survived, and I love the shot of Snowball, the eye hole rat crawling on KB, and all part of a team. And I love that 33 is now going to be a part of their life. Really, really great.
Well said.
The epic hero line, the more simplistic action figure line that they've been putting out, has announced in SM33. So I'm very happy for that.
Oh, nice. Nice.
But the thing I want is the deluxe Wendell that comes with a speeder bike and the microwave meal as an accessory, that he can be riding on his speeder bike holding the microwave noodles.
Put it in any size, but I'll take a 6-inch Black Series. Like I've got my Infus Nest and her bike, and Ray and the speeder. I want Wendell in those overalls, the big frame glasses on the speeder bike. Be great. Oh, one of them. Well, there it is. There it is. We've taken our final look at this series for now, and we'll be, in terms of just the episode reviews, I will say, we'll be talking about it here. We're working on what we hope is a wrap-up episode with some really good friends. Stay tuned for that, but I got to confirm that before we make it official. This has been a lot of fun, so we hope you have enjoyed diving deep with us. Next up, unless there's a surprise announcement of an animated series, will be Andor in late April into May, and Andor Season 2 in 2025 is going to be an adventure, a fun adventure, a serious adventure. Well, we'll see. There you go. That's it. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. You can find us on Blue Sky, especially Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe here if you would like to. Hit the notification bell. We got a lot more things coming. Live streams, Patreon. You can support us at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Merch available, TeePublic, and at Fourth Wall. Links down below if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah, that's it. I'm out of here. Ken Napzok. Follow me at Ken Napzok for updates on anything I got going on. The future is now wide open for me as well. But Jen, where can they find you?
You can find me on, I don't even know where anymore. Blue Sky, at Jennifer Landa, the thing, Instagram. I was going to say TikTok. We don't know. We don't know what's happening with that. Yeah, just search me. You'll find me.
There you go. Yeah. Joseph, you.
Yeah. You can find my website. Remember those? josephscrimshaw.com. And you can subscribe to my blog. Finish Your Monsters is a little late this week because, hey, life and dealing with some things going on here in Los Angeles. But I'll be getting that out. And you know what? It's been nice to see the explosion on Blue Sky. I really encourage people to give Blue Sky a try. To relate back to the themes of this episode, powerful forces that want to make decisions for all of us and control the message. But we have agency, power of the people. The more people that are on Blue Sky, the better and stronger community it is. So if you're interested, use your agency and choose if it's good for you or not.
There you go. That is it. So for all you parents riding those speeder bikes today, have some fun. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.